The AI ground classifier is a new feature in LP360 2025.1. This is the first of several AI classification tools that we're going to be introducing into LP360. We have several others on the roadmap. We decided to start with ground classification because for the majority of our users, getting at good ground surface is either their first deliverable or often their only deliverable to get out of their project. So we wanted to put some effort there into adding some of these great new AI types of approaches, artificial intelligence approaches, to getting the best ground surface you can from your point cloud. Couple of clarifications before we jump in, and I'll show you the integration that we've done. What is the AI ground classifier? Well, in LP360, we use a pre-trained deep learning model. So deep learning is a type of artificial intelligence to classify the point cloud, to classify individual points as ground or non-ground returns. So we're focusing just on the ground. We're not doing any advanced feature extraction currently. It's a cloud-based AI processing task which runs through LP360 Cloud, but all of the handshaking, upload, and download is handled seamlessly, as you'll see here in a minute, from within LP360 Desktop. Common question when we start talking about AI tools from users is, do I need to train my own AI models? Do I have to be an expert on building a deep learning model to classify my data? The answer is no, you don't. In LP360, we're using a pre-trained ground classification model. You don't need to provide any training data. You don't need to be an expert on how to build machine learning, deep learning neural networks. It's all done using the existing deep learning model that's embedded in our cloud AI classifier. Another question we often get from users when we talk about AI is concerns about, well, will my data be used to make your AI model better? Are you basically learning training your AI model to make it better based on my data? The answer is no. We don't use your data to train or improve the model. Your data remains proprietary to you. It is not used in any way to improve the AI model to, enhance the capabilities of your competitors or anything like that. Your data remains proprietary. It's not used for training at all. So a little bit of clarification there. So how do I actually go about using the AI classifier? So I have a data set here in LP360. This is actually a TrueView 720 data set. So it's a very nice data set. That's our sensor that's built around the Regal Vux 120. And I've only taken a short section of this project, and I've loaded it into LP360. As you can see here, I've got my point cloud. I've already done all of the initial processing work, geocoding, strip align, and so forth. And so this is my source data. It is unclassified. I'm viewing by elevation, but if I view by classification, it's all unclassified data. And that's one of the nice advantages of the AI classifier. You can work immediately from having your geocoded data. You don't need to have seed points. You don't need to generate a seed layer. You don't need to just several of the prep steps that you need to do when you're using the legacy adaptive TIN approach. You can just work directly from the data coming out of your geocoding. You'll also notice I've got the tile boundaries displayed here. So we've got a sort of overlapping tiling scheme coming out of geocode and smoothing. We do need to tile the data, and we do need to have orthogonal tiles to feed to the AI classifier, but LP360 is going to take care of that for us, as you'll see in the dialog. So the actual interface is very simple. Assuming you have upgraded to version 2025.1, if you go to your ribbon bar, you should see a ground classification ribbon. This ribbon currently only has one button on it, but it is part of our change to the ground classification workflow to ribbonize or basically streamline and simplify the steps you need to go through to do a ground classification. So there'll be upcoming changes to this toolbar where we'll be adding some editing tools. We'll be adding some product generation tools. So essentially when you're doing ground classification, you'll just be able to work from a single ribbon to work through the whole process from end to end. And we'll cover some of that in a future webinar. For now, there's simply the AI ground classification button, which is going to bring up a relatively simple dialog. So you can submit a LAS layer from your project. So you do have to obviously have it in your project on a LAS layer. You can split multiple layers if you want to. In this particular case, I'm just going to work with my source layer to configure this. We give you a little bit of information about the layers because there are some pointers you need to pay attention to when you're setting up your AI classification. We give you the size, that's going to be important. I'll talk about this in a minute, and the point count here. And just for reference, the spatial reference system there is there as well. So once you've selected the layers that you want to submit to the AI classifier, you have various options for some pre-classification steps. And generally, unless you're having some issues, I would recommend you always do each of these. First is outliers classification. Depending on your data set, you may have some of that very high or very low noise that can occur in the point cloud. You want to get rid of those. So we're going to run our outliers step as part of this job. Smoothing, we do recommend smoothing. Now, as I mentioned, this is 720 data, so it's very low shot noise in this data set, but certainly you're always going to get a benefit from smoothing, reducing some of that noise on your smooth flat surfaces. So we can include that in the job as well. We can remove the noise classes, so any outliers or any of existing low noise we may have in our data set, we can get rid of that. And then there's a tiling option, and I'll talk about this for a little bit here. So as I mentioned, we do need to have an orthogonal set of tiles to feed to the AI classifier. LP360 will automatically take care of creating that orthogonal set of tiles based on a tile size that you set here. This can depend a little bit on your data, but generally if you're doing true view processing, you're flying with no crazy overlap or multiple flight lines over a site, something probably around 300 meters is a good grid size to use for that. Generally, you want to keep the grid size for AI classification between 100 and 500 meters. Don't want to go lower than that. Don't want to go larger than that. There is another limitation for the AI classifier as well, though, and that's the total size of the individual LAS file, so the individual tiles in your grid. You want those to be less than 3 gigabytes, which is partly why we list the size here. If your whole data set is less than 3 gigabytes, of course, you don't have to worry. If it's larger than that, you do want to tile and tile to an appropriate size so that the largest tile you have is about 3 gigabytes. In general, LP360 will do a good job of flagging that for you. If you do end up with a tile that's larger than that, you'll just get flagged and it'll say, hey, there was a tile larger than this, and you'll have to retile with a smaller tiling value. So you can set this up as you notice, they're optional, but as I mentioned, we do recommend you use them. Unless there's some reason not to use them, you're having some issues or you're not quite getting the results you want, we would always recommend classifying your outliers, smoothing your data, deleting out your noise classes. And again, if you're greater than 3 gigabytes, you want to be tiling. Need to give it a new LAS layer name. Call that whatever you want. And we will give you a cost estimate. So the AI classifier is a paid service. You do need the automatic AI ground classification license, and then there's a charge per job. You get a certain number of free points, as was explained, with each month. So we do tell you what that cost estimate is, so you can see what what points you're going to be spending on the job. and you go ahead and click submit, and that will create a job in Job Manager for you. I'm not actually going to run this just for time purposes, but I will show you a job I previously submitted just so you can see the structure of what you're going to see in Job Manager. So here's a previous ground classification. So the job type is CGC that I submitted. The job has several steps or sub jobs to it, which you can see are those options: the outliers, the smoothing, the tiling. Once those are completed, Job Manager will upload the data to LP360 Cloud. That data will then have the AI ground classifier run on it, and then LP360 Cloud will notify us that the job is ready and it's been downloaded to our machine. So you'll get into the ready state for the job as a whole. So this is my job here, these lines up here. And as with most jobs in Job Manager, once that's ready, you get an email notification of this as well. I do need to come in here and run the complete job step. So I'll go ahead and run that. This was just a small sample plot that I ran just so I could show you what was going on in Job Manager. It'll say, okay, we're completed with Job Manager, or we've completed that job successfully, and it's put my sample plot AI classifier into my project. So now I've got my sample plot AI classification level in here, which is now classified. And that's all you need to do to access the AI classifier. Now, we don't have to limit ourselves just to that small sample plot. I'll go ahead and we'll switch to the full AI results here. And zoom out a little bit. So this is the results of the AI classifier on this 720 data. Obviously, I'm intensity modulating as well. So I've got now basically ground and unclassified points in my data. I haven't done any additional classification to that. And so you can ask the question, how effective is the AI ground classifier? We've done extensive testing. We had a fairly extensive beta testing program with this. It's a very effective method for segmenting your ground returns in your point cloud. Primarily, it's going to reduce false positives, so that's non-ground that gets classified as ground, and false negatives where it misses the ground, compared to the traditional adaptive tin that you may have been running previously. But as with all analytical techniques, it's not 100%. It's not a holy grail. There are small areas that may need a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of editing, depending on the nature of the terrain and the topography. What our beta testers have reported consistently, though, is the amount of effort required to do that small optimization, small bit of cleanup or editing after the AI classifier is significantly less than what you would get if you had used the adaptive tin approach or an algorithmic approach to doing the ground classification. So the takeaway there is, don't expect it to be 100%. Everything's perfectly classified. That's not the nature of what you're going to get with the generalized model like this. You should expect to be able to have to do a little bit of cleanup. Depends on the nature of your terrain, of course, but it should significantly reduce the amount of effort that you have to do spend cleaning up and getting a good ground classification. And if you just look at some of the results here, we can see it's done a much better job than you would get just straight out of an adaptive tin on these areas. I've got a nice long building here. I've got no bus due to seed points. It's classifying out each of my boats. I guess this is a boat shop in here. I can see my different vertical structures. I think there's a billboard up here that's been classified out. Let me change my display here a second. Okay. So we can see here, got all of the above ground and vertical structure. We've got this nice billboard here that's nicely classified out and segmented on top of the building. We look at some of the areas further down in the south. We've got some buildings and parking lot areas. gas station over here, all with overhead lines and some vertical structure as well. So the AI classifier is going to get you closer to having that good ground surface ready to go. Again, depending on the nature of your terrain and your topography, it may be good enough for what you want to do for generating contours, but you can expect to do a little bit of cleanup and editing. But especially with areas like objects that are close to the ground, like the cars here, of course, we can see that there's some farm machinery in the field out here. Um, just does a much better job than the adaptive tin at segmenting those out. And that's really all you need to know about the AI ground classifier in LP360. As I mentioned, you do need to update to version 2025.1. If you'd like to take this for a test run to do some evaluation classifications on some of your projects, just let us know. We'll set you up with a 2-week license and some free points for running some jobs. Really excited to get people using this and learning and understanding. As I said, our beta test program was very successful. A lot of the users there were saying, yeah, it definitely reduces the amount of time it takes to get to that nice clean ground class for doing your contours or your DTM.